Thank you so much for inviting me to be here this evening. I really appreciate it. I always enjoy traveling anywhere with my great friend, mentor, Terry Waite. Terry was at one time chairman of the Free Play Foundation for a long period of time and has his own unique stories about the use of self-sufficient energy technologies when he in turn was so reliant on batteries to power the radio that he was finally given in captivity, and I hope he tells you that story tonight. I might not tell you anything today that you don't know, but I hope to give you some context to the dual and interconnected issues of energy poverty and global warming, which are issues that I'm devoting my life to addressing, as well as hopefully convincing you that this isn't just about the topic that was on your title about a tax break. What we're talking about is corporate social responsibility in one way, social entrepreneurship in another, but businesses, of which many of you run them, are legally people, and a person without a conscience is a psychopath. And so in my mind, it's a very one-dimensional view, but in my mind, businesses have to be engaged with the societies in which they operate. I founded Free Play Energy after coming across Trevor Bayliss, the innovator, on a television program and getting the rights to that technology. And for me, it was mostly about the business opportunity of taking a technology to the developing world to obviate the need for batteries. I knew from originally being South African that batteries were the primary power source of people that had little access to energy, and anything that obviated the need for disposable batteries would be a highly interesting business opportunity. So I came to this from that perspective. The product itself, though, is so empowering and so obviously necessary to so many people in the world that it in turn started to drive the company, if you like, in a particular direction towards being much more socially orientated than I would have first thought of when I was planning out how to do this. We took this micro energy business, which was what Free Play was, which is intellectual properties really in the generation and storage of human energy. How do you put energy in as fast as you can, take it out as slowly as you can to power a range of products? And the products that we got involved with, the way we packaged this energy to take it to people around the world were in the wind-up radio, the clockwork radio, as was known here for a long time, and cell phone chargers. India, for instance, is adding 12 million new cell phone users a month. 144 million users a year starting to use cell phone technology. Africa is, already has more than 200 million users of cell phones. This is the PC of the developing world, and always the issue is about how do you power these. That's the opportunity, and the obligation is to find out how to take this technology and make it useful and usable to people on a consistent and sustainable basis. Free Play is a global organization today. I sold the company out of our public company 18 months ago, continue to be very involved in the Free Play Foundation, but Free Play's operations were in London, South Africa, Kenya, Hong Kong, the United States, Canada, and India by the time that we moved it on. But it was driven always by a core purpose, and that core purpose was to provide access to energy to everyone, everywhere, all the time. It was highly commercially focused business. It was public on the London Stock Exchange, although with a strong social focus, which I've told you. And it's always been a highly environmentally focused business. We always understood that business and the societies in which they operated, as I've said, need to be responsible to each other. And ultimately, I wasn't comfortable that we were addressing the people that needed the technology the most and could afford it the least. By 1998, we were doing significant sales in the United States to people who like to go camping and thought that a wind-up flashlight was a great way to do it. So the business was almost being hijacked, if you like, into a direction that was very good for the investors, but not so good for the people that the technology had originally been developed for. And so I founded the Free Play Foundation, which today is a a registered charity in the United Kingdom, and in the United States and in South Africa, in 3 different countries. And it operates in 13 countries, all in Africa at the moment, providing largely access to information. So its core is to say information, or access to information, education is a basic human right, and distance education via the radio, and now an MP3 player which is being developed so that you could take something like a memory stick, plug it into an MP3 player and say to a child-headed household in Rwanda, here's your syllabus for the next year. And some of the results on distance education are far greater and better, if you like, than when teachers are involved, for a simple reason. If you take a country like Zambia alone, 2 teachers are dying for every one that's being trained because of the scourge of HIV/AIDS in Africa. So access to information is crucial. The Free Play Foundation is committed to doing this, but that information is only sustainable if you're also providing an access to a power source that in itself is sustainable. And that's really what it's all about. It focuses on mainly women and children in a range of different countries across Africa. I met Ben in Rwanda, and I decided to shoot my CNN Principal Voices segment there, because it's a country that the story of which is very close to my own heart. As a white South African, April 1994 was an incredible month, not only for white people, of course, but for the whole country. The election in South Africa was on the 27th of April, 1994. The plane carrying the president of Rwanda and the president of Burundi was shot down the next day in a very, very well-planned genocide. 1 million people were slaughtered in Rwanda in 6 weeks. It is the most efficient genocide in the history of the world, using machetes. The rivers literally ran with blood. The planners of this atrocity worked on the principle that the world's media could only focus on one thing at a time, and they were going to focus on Nelson Mandela becoming the president of South Africa. And so this took place off the radar screen. Bill Clinton, who was president of the United States at the time, marks it up as being the biggest failing he made as president of the US. Kofi Annan, who was then the head of the emergency services of the United Nations, has to bear responsibility for the world's not focusing in on this issue at all. Beyond the genocide, the HIV scourge, which is killing many, many, many people in Africa, then exacerbates this whole issue, leaving today 108,000 child-headed households. 1 million children in Rwanda live on their own, being brought up by their peers. A child-headed household is where the leader of the household is younger than 18. These are the poorest people on the planet. They have no access to any kind of family structure, and so something as crucially important as information, a wind-up radio, gives them access to the information they require. Anytime you speak to these kids and say, what is it that you listen to on the radio? Most people in a setting like this would go, well, it's probably music and entertainment. It's never that. It's the news. It's the friendly voice on the radio that makes them feel safe, that they can trust, that they get the information that allows access to how to look after their brothers and sisters better, that cutting the grass will keep the mosquitoes away, which will keep the malaria at some sort of bay, that how to work their little plot better, that it's going to rain tomorrow, so it's a really good time to sow seed, how to look after their goat, which is probably the most precious thing that they have, if they have a goat. And this is the kind of environment that the Free Play Foundation works in. What I want to encourage you to do is to look at this model, which has been written up twice now in business school studies, of a for-profit entity alongside a not-for-profit entity. We've never served on the board. Terry and other colleagues were the board of the Free Play Foundation. We gave money. We shared a brand, which is a crucial thing. In fact, the amount of Google hits for the foundation is 5 times more than it ever is for the company. So the company's benefiting enormously from the shared brand awareness, from the shared product development, because we developed products specifically for the end users for this kind of end user rather than for somebody who was going camping in the United States on specific products. And it's been, I think, a wonderful success story in how to align values and work together to a purpose, a common purpose, not neglecting your business constituency, and where a foundation is not neglecting its constituency, which is the end user that you're really trying to get to. But why do people need to have all of this context to need wind-up radios, etc.? I've given you some of the figures involved, but the more horrifying thing is 35% of the world's population, over 2 billion people, have zero access to electricity. None, nothing. And another 35%, another 2 billion people, have only some, intermittent. So we are sitting with a third of the world not having access to any of the things that we take for granted. That's energy poverty. When we talk about energy poverty, that's what it is. If you then go dive into these figures even more, and you take the continent of Africa, only 22% of Africa is electrified. South Africa, where I'm originally from, has over 80% electrified. They're holding the World Cup there next year. It's a developed world society in many ways. North Africa is well over 50% electrified. So that piece in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa remains the dark continent. And many of you would have seen that famous picture now of the planet at night, and Africa's dark. There's a bright bit down the south and in the north, and the rest of it is just nothing. And that's the reality of people's lives. And it shouldn't be. The technology exists today. We don't have to invent our way out of this. The technology exists. The power sources exist to get this done. What doesn't necessarily always exist is the political will to really make an enormous difference to this. Absence of electricity is obviously an absence of access to true development. Everything that you would take for granted, everything that you've used today, your television set, the radio in your motor car, lighting, water purification, the refrigerator, computers. We worked with Nicholas Negroponte, who's a great friend from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, on his now world-famous One Laptop Per Child program. I did point out to Nicholas that to use a laptop, you've got to be able to read, write, and type, and have access to electricity. We looked after the electricity piece, and you can crank them up or use a foot pedal now. But really, a much more fundamental thing for many of these kids is just access to an MP3 player or something that has a solid-state thing that can actually talk to them and instruct them, much as a teacher would do, without them necessarily having access to other things. So on a continent that's already dealing with all these major social issues, energy poverty puts people in Africa even further behind than they necessarily do. It leads to dependence on unsustainable alternatives, kerosene. The World Bank will tell you that the poor in Africa spend $17 billion a year on fuel for lighting. That's mostly on kerosene. The Indian government will sponsor kerosene every year to the tune of $10 billion. It is actually the driving force behind where many people in the developing world get their energy from, is burning kerosene-powered products, with all the resulting traumas that result from that. Emphysema, bad eyesight. You know, the Cape Town municipality, I have a home in Cape Town, South Africa, budget 20 million rand a year for shack fires, for the results of shack fires that come from kerosene lamps, the burnt kids and that you see in the developing world as a result of those. Wood, of course, the denuding of forests is a result. And of course, disposable batteries. So much of cost goes to disposable batteries. My wife, who runs the Free Play Foundation, always says that batteries are a gender issue because men take them out of batteries when they go off somewhere. We take the batteries out of the radios and put them in their pockets, and we'll bring them back in the evenings and listen to what they want to listen to. So something like cranking a radio up does democratize the access to the information. The other thing about batteries that most people don't know is that it's a very parasitic power source. It takes 50% more energy to actually make a battery than it'll ever give back as a battery. So it's not exactly a power source that we support. But what's to be done about this? It's enough to stand up in these kind of gatherings and give out these shocking lists of statistics and say, that's the size of the problem. But how do we actually go around and solve the problem? As an entrepreneur, I'd prefer to be in the action orientation part of it and say, what can we do? On a micro scale, of course, we must continue to develop off-the-grid utilities that, as I say, exist today. Wind, solar power, animal and human power, biomass. Those are the primary ways that the developing world will be powered. We need greater development in wind and solar alternatives on a large scale to power towns and cities across the developing world. We need regulatory support to enable these developments, including financial incentives for developers. The European Union is so far ahead of the rest of the world in this area of incentivizing people in the renewable energy field, especially in Germany, Spain and Italy. The UK is starting to catch up, but it's still some ways behind in doing this. And the US, of course, is nowhere. You know, Obama's promising so much, and one of his major planks was around the whole thing of renewable and sustainable energy. But it's a slow process. Look, the man's got a few issues on his plate, but this is a massive, massive thing that has to be done, because ultimately we do need the incentives that will allow the cost to be comparable with fossil fuels, while we have an energy price that's less than $80. We need to overhaul the protectionist nature of the developing world. Duties on imports really distort the pricing. It was always true that our products were much more expensive in Nairobi than they were in New York. There's a 37% import duty in India on bringing these, in the countries in the world that these products are needed the most. The government is part of the problem in keeping us out. And so taking a much more holistic view of what to do is what I'm now doing in my next phase in my business life, using a cash shell that we have on the London Stock Exchange, myself and a few other people who are not yet at liberty to name, very well-known people, take a holistic view to saying the 2 billion people that haven't got energy, we're going to build a business that will be profitable, and it will have wider objectives than just being profitable, that will provide access to these people. We're going to lobby the governments. We're going to work with governments to facilitate rather than retard bringing energy into these areas. We're going to raise the venture capital funding that allows the free players of this world to get the access to capital they need. We're going to participate in designing the renewable grids and funding that, and we're going to come up with some of the ideas of how to get energy to rural populations. You can make a phone call anywhere in the world today, or almost anywhere in the world. You know, my wife was in Rwanda last week. She was getting BlackBerry messages way away from Kigali. That infrastructure has been built out by the mobile phone companies. Most of those towers are powered by diesel. By overpowering them with renewable sources, whether it's a generator of wind and solar as one idea, overpowering that allows you to also sell that energy, because it is a business that the government needs to do, to sell that energy to rural areas around. Even if it's something as simple as bringing a car battery, which is how much of the developing world is powered, bring a car battery, recharge it and take it back to be able to power items that you've got at home. That's one way of doing things. Make this, the infrastructure exists, let's partner and make all of that happen. In conclusion, I'd just like to quote an African proverb. If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We must go quickly together. I hope you'll support this. Thank you very much.